Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in the world. This is Gloria White, and it's like the middle of the night in Utah. Um, my last video was Ecclesiastes chapter 8, and I was talking about knowing God and trying to understand, how He works, how He thinks, how He figures things out, how He uses His justice and how He uses His mercy and grace, and how He's a jealous God. And once He's turned to wrath, it can't be turned away. But anyway, I wanted to, I was thinking, about what Jesus said about God. And He says in Matthew 22, verse 37 through 39, and it says, Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thine soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, I'm like, wow, I never thought about getting to know God in that sense. It just came to me like when I was saying that. The Holy Spirit is so good. I mean, if you're listening, He is, on it. So, anyway, okay, now here's where we hear God speaking, God Himself, in the book of Job, you know, where God gave Satan power over Job, except he couldn't kill him. And so, first he took everything away from Job, and then Job still didn't curse God. He didn't blame God. He just accepted it and just wished he had never been born. Um, but he never said anything ever bad about the Lord. But his friends went on and on and on about, oh, Job, you must have been, doing something really bad. You need to, repent and make some offerings and, change your ways, Job. And Job just kept defending himself and not blaming God. And then Satan came to God and said, "Yeah, but if I hurt his body, it'd be a totally different thing. Like if I, you know, afflicted him physically." And God said, "Go ahead. Don't kill him, but go ahead." And so Satan did, and he made him full of boils, and it was terrible for Job. And he was just sitting around in sackcloth, and he could hardly sleep, and he could barely eat, and it was terrible. He was full of boils and sores all over his body. And then after all of that, then God comes, and he starts answering Job. He starts talking to him. And so when you listen to his friends. Now, when you are under stress and you're having physical pain and lots of problems and loss, don't blame God. Although He does call us home when He wants us home. But Job never blamed God. He lost his whole family, all his herds, all his flocks, a house that his children were in. A wind came and blew it down and took them all away. Now, let me make sure I'm right where, whoa, man, she keeps missing the ball. I want to get right where when God starts. Give me a second. Okay, so after all of this browbeating he gets from his friends, condemning him and telling him that this is all his fault, he's done something wrong, and he never talks bad about God, no matter what's come upon him. So now God gave him over to Satan, and Satan took every physical possession he owned away. And then God gave Satan permission to afflict him physically, but not to take his life. And yet Job, having gone through all the losses he's gone through, all of his children, all he has is his wife, and then his whole body is covered in sores, and he's sitting in the ashes. Now, the Lord answers. In chapter 38 in the book of Job, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, or question thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, or determined its measurements, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line, or the measuring line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut up the sea with doors, when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it, and brake, or fixed my limit for it, and break up for it my decreed place, and set bars and doors, and said, hereunto shalt thou come, but no further, and here shall thy proud waves be stayed, or must stop. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring, or the dawn, to know his place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it? It is turned as clay, or takes on form like clay under a seal. It is turned as clay to the seal, and that's SEAL. And they stand as a garment, or stand out as a garment. And from the wicked their light is withholden, or withheld, and the high arm shall be broken, or uplifted. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? Or hast thou walked in the search of the depths? Have the gates of death been opened unto thee, or revealed? Or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare it, if thou know it all. Where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof, that thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, or its territory, and that thou shouldest know the paths to the house thereof? Knowest thou it, because thou wast then born, or because the number of thy days is great? Hast thou entered into the treasures or the treasury of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against a time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? By what way is the light parted, or possibly meaning diffused or diffracted, which shattereth the east wind, or the east wind scattereth upon the earth? Who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning, or the thunderbolt, the lightning of thunder, or the thunderbolt, to cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth? Hath the rain a father? Or who hath begotten the drops of the dew? Out of whose womb came the ice and the hoary frost of heaven? Who hath gendered it? Or who gives it birth? Canst thou bind the sweet influences of the Palisades? Cluster of the Canst thou bind the sweet influence of the Palisades, which is or the 7 stars, or Palisades, or the 7 stars, or loose the bands of Orion his belt? Canst thou bring forth, and now, the Palisades, Orion, and Arcturus, that has been in, I think, I've heard some of the channels talking about these. It is so amazing to me when God points me. There will be things going on, or before things are going on, and he points them out to me. Like me going to Job, the end of Job, to read his questions. How futile, how how much vanity is in a man's head that he thinks that he knows any of this. No, he can't answer God any of these questions. Could you? But I just thought it was so interesting that Palisades and Orion and Arcturus are mentioned right here. Canst thou bind the sweet influence, or the cluster of Palisades, or the 7 stars, or loose the bands of Orion, which is his belt? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds? that abundance of waters may cover thee? Canst thou send lightnings, that they may go, and say unto thee, Here we are? You call the lightning. Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or the mind? Who puts the wisdom in your mind? Understanding. And who hath given understanding to the heart? Who can count? Who can number the clouds in wisdom? Or who can stay the bottles of heaven? Or pour out the bottles of heaven? When the dust groweth into hardness, or hardens into clumps, and the clods cleave or cling fast together, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions? When they couch in their dens, or crouch, when they crouch in their dens, and abide or lurk in their lairs, or lie in wait, who provideth for the raven his food? When young ones cry unto God, they wonder for lack of food. Knowest thou the time when the wild goats of the rock bring forth? When do they give birth? Or canst thou mark when the hinds do calve, or the deer? Canst thou number the months that they fulfill? Or knowest thou the time when they bring forth? Do you know how long they're pregnant? They bow themselves, they bring forth their young ones. They cast out their sorrows. And their sorrows is their pangs. Their young ones are in good liking or healthy. They grow up with corn, or they grow strong with grain. They go forth and return not unto them. You know, the young deer and the young lions, when they grow up, they move away. Not the lioness, the lions. Who hath sent out the wild ass free? And who hath loosed the bands of the wild ass, or the species of wild donkey? Who has loosed the bands of the wild ass, or the wild donkey? Whose house I have made the wilderness, and the barren, or the salt land his dwelling. Who did he put to live there on the salt plains? He scorneth the multitude of the city. He scorneth the tumult of the city. Neither regardeth he, or heeds he, the crying of the driver, or shouts the donkey. He scorneth this is the donkey. He scorneth the multitude of the city. Neither or heeds he the crying of the driver, or the shouts of the driver. He'll just move at his own pace when he feels like it. Will the unicorn, which, now people think that the unicorn is like the horse with the horn. No, in the Bible it's a wild ox. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by thy crib, or manger? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his bands in the furrow? Or will he harrow the valleys after thee? Will the bull chase you if he's a wild bull? Well, I got news for you. Even if a bull's not wild, if he hasn't been tamed, as in snip, snip, he'll come after you. Wilt thou trust him because his strength is great? Or wilt thou leave thy labor to him? Wilt thou believe him that he will bring home thy seed or grain and gather it into thy barn or threshing floor? Gavest thou the goodly wings unto the peacocks, or the wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but are her wings and pinions like the kindly storks? Or wings and feathers unto the ostrich, which leaveth her eggs in the earth and warmeth them in the dust, and forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them? She has no concern over that. She is hardened against her young ones, or treats her young harshly, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear, no concern, because God hath deprived her of wisdom, neither hath he imparted to her understanding. What time she lifted up herself on high, she scorneth the horse and his rider. Hast thou given the horse strength? Hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? Or with a mane? Canst thou make him afraid as a grasshopper? Or make him spring in fear like a locust? The glory of his majesty the majesty of his snorting nostrils is terrifying. These were horses of war, wild horses. Now, you don't want to mess with a wild horse, okay? If you're lucky, they'll run away. They have young, they may run at you, or the stallion would come to defend his herd. He paweth in the valley and rejoiceth in his strength. He goeth on to meet the armed men. He mocketh at fear, and is not affrighted, neither turneth he back from the sword. War horses, the quiver rattleth against him, the glittering spear and the shield. He swalloweth the ground with fierceness and rage, neither believeth he that it is the sound of the trumpet. He saith among the trumpets, Ha, ha! And he smelleth a battle afar off, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom, and stretch her wings toward the south? Doth the eagle mount up at thy command, and make her nest on high? Do you have control over any of this? Do you know how I made these animals, why they act the way they do? She dwelleth and abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place, from whence she seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Her young ones also suck up blood, and where the slain are, there is she, taking food to the young. Now, that's just 2 chapters, and there's 2 more chapters. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want to make you crazy, and I don't want you to go away without listening to all of this, because this is God questioning. What do you know about anything? Can you answer any of these questions? Do you have any idea. You know, of course, Job is like, I don't know where the foundations of the earth are. I don't know how you make the sea stop where it stops. I mean, I don't know why the ostrich doesn't care for her young and thinks that they're a bother. I don't know how you made the horse thunder into battle. How well the hawk can fly and the eagle can see the prey so far away. Even the hawk, you know. This is amazing. This is God talking about his creation. Do you think he's a little proud of what he did? Do you think he's like, Job, what do you really know about the world that you're in? How can you answer anything? You can't know anything. You have no idea what I do all day long. You know, it's like that. So I just think it's amazing, and it just makes me love him even more. More and more and more. I so love my God. We serve a mighty God. But don't be fooled. He will judge. And only he. Don't let anybody else judge you. You know, in the things that you do or think or say. You know? Be your own bridle. Put your bridle on. Use your own bridle to bridle your tongue, as it's a dangerous little thing. But anyway, the next video, I'll read chapter 40, and it's 41, and then 42 is the last chapter in the book. So next time I'll do 40, 41, and 42, because 41 is kind of short. All right, as always, I love you. I really, really do. And so does he.